Welcome to Shannons Club TV, where we offer a fresh perspective on classic cars seen on Australian roads and racetracks.
In each episode, we reflect on the defining points that made our feature car stand out and meet a proud owner. We also get some handy tips from the Shannons auctions team.
So let's get rolling with the compact family car that thrived on the road and racetrack during a troubled period in Holden's history, the VK Commodore.
The VK range, launched in March 1984, was the first serious rework of the Holden Commodore since its introduction on the 26th of October 1978. While the VK retained the platform and key dimensions of its three predecessors, VB, VC and VH, its new six-window glasshouse made it look bigger, not only on the outside, but also from the inside looking out. New front and rear styling, extensively revised interiors, plastic bumpers instead of chrome, greater differentiation between the flagship variant and the lesser models, and new names completed a major facelift. While an all-new, bigger body was still years into the future, if it was ever going to happen at all, so perilous were GMH's finances looking in the early 1980s, Holden's designers had to take the existing car to the max. Mark, the VK had an important racing agenda beyond Bathurst, didn't it? Yeah,
it sure did. You know, with the switch to international Group A touring car rules, Peter Brock and HDT had some ambitious plans to take in the world's first World Touring Car Championship in 1987. So Holden and HDT developed a great Group A version of the VK, which they then took to Europe in 1986, did a few races as a bit of a trial run. That impressed me enormously, you know, the fact that they were in such a difficult position. There must have been a lot of petrol in the veins at Holden.
A lot of petrol heads in executive positions at Holden, which was a great thing.
They were, because at the time, you know, Ford had switched off in terms of motorsport, but Holden just kept pushing. It was really good.
You've nailed it.
Yeah.
Mechanically, the biggest news was the latest Bosch LE2 electronic fuel injection on the venerable 3.3 litre 6. Confounding critics with its newfound vigour in combination with impressive tractability, fuel economy and smoothness. Now with 106 kilowatts of power, the 3.3 litre 6 in the lighter Commodore easily equalled a 4.1 litre EFI Falcon and literally made the once vaunted 4.2 litre V8 redundant. Gone too was the 2850, making the carburetted 3.3 litre engine the baseline alongside the optional 5 litre V8. The rest was mixed news. Those new plastic bits that did so much to make the VK look new didn't fit properly. In fact, the whole car suffered from appalling fit and finish and poor paint, making it the worst of Australia's poor lot. Then there was the new instrumentation. The Calais digital display was great while it worked, but expensive when it failed. Lesser variants got nasty kiddie car style instruments in square housings. Change for the sake of change. If anything, the familiar and notorious Commodore tendency to rear roll steer was worse on VK than previous models. VK handling indeed seemed to vary slightly from one example to another. Call that poor quality control too. Peak excitement was reserved for HDT's SS variants, especially the Blue Meanie Group A, which is one of the all-time Holden greats. And Mark, the VK earned itself plenty of racetrack glory.
Yeah, it sure did. And that included a unique achievement at Mount Panorama. The VK Commodore is the only Holden to have won the Bathurst 1000 under two different sets of rules. The first came in 1984 for the Holden dealer team, which was also the last year for our homegrown Group C touring cars. The HDT VKs were the simplest, lightest and fastest Commodores produced by Holden's factory team, with the most aggressive yet smoothest aerodynamics and a dazzling Marlboro livery, featuring day-glow paintwork that glowed bright orange under the Bathurst sun. With potent carby-fed 5 litre V8s producing more than 400 brake horsepower, those cars were capable of tremendous top speeds, approaching 290 kilometres per hour on Conrod Straight. Not surprisingly, they were also the class of the field, with the winning VK shared by Peter Brock and Larry Perkins and the second place car shared by John Harvey and David Parsons cruising across the finish line in a dominant 1-2 formation. John Holden affectionately called those cars, the last of the big bangers. I always remember that, and rightly so. I mean, they were really, really exciting cars, the Group C cars.
They were monsters, weren't they?
Yeah.
Those great big wide wheels and the wings and the spoilers.
Big wheel arch flares.
I remember the first year the Group A cars were there. They just looked like cars in the supermarket car park by comparison. That was a big change.
It was a big change. And isn't it interesting how we went through the whole Group A era? We went to turbocharged Ford Sierras, turbocharged Nissans, and then after several years of that, they decided to go back to where we started with Aussie V8s again. So
Absolutely.
it almost went full circle.
It did, yep. Yep.
The VK's second Bathurst victory came 2 years later for first-time winners Alan Grice and Graham Bailey, when the race was being run to international Group A rules. After a difficult start under the new regulations in 1985, Holden and HDT responded with the General's first purpose-built contender, the SS Group A, for 1986. It was a relatively simple car by international standards, with a more aerodynamic body kit and a stronger A9L version of the carby-fed Aussie V8, which had also seen a slight drop in cubic capacity to 4.9 litres to allow a crucial reduction to the car's minimum weight. The privately entered Grice-Bailey VK, prepared by Les Small and backed by Bailey's Chickadee poultry business, embodied all the hard lessons the trio had learned racing in Europe that year, which allowed them to outclass a quality field, including the Holden and Nissan factory teams. The unique achievement of winning both Group C and Group A Bathurst 1000s cemented the VK Commodore's status as one of the most adaptable and effective race cars in Holden's proud history at Mount Panorama. Remember to join the Shannons Club, where you can connect with other enthusiasts around the country.
Hi, I'm George Pilates, and this is a 1985 VK Group A Brock Commodore. Peter Brock made 500 VK Group A Commodores, and then due to customer demand for a slightly more luxurious model, he added some Group 3 features and produced 48 Group A Group 3 cars, of which this is one of them. It's got a 4.9 litre V8 engine, and its output is around 200 kilowatts, and it's got a T5 5-speed gearbox. I've painted the front bar. I've put factory air conditioning in, just maintained it ever since. I'd gone to a wedding in Traralgon, and there were 3 of them in a wedding party. There was quite a sight and sound, and I vowed to get one, and 10 years later I did. The car's motorsport history did play a part because I used to follow Peter Brock, and then he came to my dental practice, and I had a working relationship with him as well. It is very smooth to drive. I always liked the shape of it, the colour, and the fact that Peter Brock had his DNA all over it. I am a Shannons customer. I have been for 25 years. We've got 5 cars in our family, and we also have our home insured with them. We have made a number of claims over the years, and they've been more than helpful. They've been really, really good. My future plans for the car are to continue to drive it once or twice a month, maintain it in its current condition, and eventually pass it on to the next owner, whether it's one of my 3 children or someone else who appreciates the car as much as I do.
Well, Shannons National Auctions Manager Chris Borrabon has dropped by to bring us right up to speed on the VK Commodore. Welcome.
Welcome, Chris. It's difficult to think of 2 initials in the English language that carry such a wealth of automotive meaning as VK, all the way from a taxi to the hottest Brockmobile you could imagine.
Yes. Yeah.
So how does it work out in the auction scene?
What's the pecking order?
Yeah, look, I think, the VKSS Group A is obviously at top of the pecking order.
The Blue Meanie?
The Blue Meanie, finished in Formula Blue, as they called it. That's got to be, one of the 500 cars definitely has got to be at the top of the pecking order with those, with the VKs.
What's the survival rate been on those Blue Meanies? Because, You know, when they came out, though, of course, the bank robbers loved them and people were stealing them and I guess smashing them and racing them. What do you think the survival rate's been?
Look, I think it's quite strong, but I think, there's different levels of Group A's that we see.
That's right.
You see cars that have got fairly high mileage, have not been very well looked after, to cars that are immaculate and, have, 40, 50,000 kilometres on the clock. So the person who bought it cherished that car and,
That's
and today that's the one to have.
Yeah, try and chase it up. Yeah.
And what about the rest of the range? VK Calais V8, for example.
Yep.
Where does that sit?
Look, it's a nice to have car. They're quite rare today to find. As you said, the 5-litre VK Calais. It's probably one of the better ones to have
Nice car.
in pecking order. And again, you sort of go down from there. But yeah, probably one of the the ones you don't see too many out there. But I'd say in the club scene, we probably do see a few emerging through now.
And the fuel injected car, which came only with the automatic transmission,
6-cylinder.
Are they desirable? 3.3
We haven't seen
litre?
much of movement in that in the 6-cylinder cars there. I think it's probably the lower production number of cars that have really shown through in the last few years, and especially with the Aussie muscle right now. I think that's where the scene is. Yep.
Well, just going back to the Group A for a moment, I always think among all those Brock cars, one of those, the white wheels, perhaps with the 5-speed gearbox, that's just about the most desirable of all.
It would have to be.
Yeah, that's right. If you can find one with, the low-Ks, the books, the one-owner or two-owner car, that bit of a holy grail, I think, in a VK.
And when we're talking about V8s, I mean, Ford was out of V8s by then, and I remember the police, the Highway Patrol, the VK 5-litre V8 with the hot police version of it. That became quite a hero car. Do you see many of them around now? Or?
We're starting to see it re-emerge again. I think, as they call it, the interceptors.
Aren't they great?
Yep. And, I think they had the powder blue as well.
Oh, really?
That's right, in that. The yellow, obviously the bright yellow. And, they're making a comeback. I think, we're seeing more of that coming through in the VK and the VL range. So,
Yeah. And imagine being a Holden, there's plenty of spare parts, plenty of clubs, plenty of backup. So it's a practical car.
Yep, plenty of support, through companies like Rare Spares and others. There's plenty of support and plenty of parts available for these cars. So, yeah, good thing to get on.
That was the swan song, not only for the 3.3 litre engine, but also the Trimatic, sometimes called traumatic transmission, because the next model had a Nissan engine. The VL.
Yep. So there's plenty to choose from for a potential VK collector.
Look, I think there is, and again, probably some of the lower models make a really great entry point. We haven't
entry-level classic.
Entry-level classic, absolutely.
Good stuff. Well, thanks, Chris.
No problem.
Remember, you can keep up to date with all the latest Shannons auctions news on the Shannons Club website. If you'd like a memorable race image of the VK Commodore, check out the huge archive at autopics.com.au. John, reflecting on the VK Commodore, it was interesting, two personalities, I guess you could say. The mainstream business, the car might have looked a bit like a cut price special in some ways, but in the performance side of the business with Group A and HDT are their on-track successes, they were really going gangbusters.
Absolutely right. And I think the managing director, Chuck Chapman, kind of indicated that at the launch of the car, where he said people really have got no idea how difficult it is in a car company to introduce all this new technology in the VK while looking through very difficult financial times and maybe conceiving a future model. So that kind of anxiety that he expressed is epitomised in the car, which had a kind of split personality in a way. It had bits that looked cheap and added on, and yet it had that proverbial Australian heart of gold.
It's interesting in that context. I wonder if Chuck Chapman knew that there was a rescue package on the way from Detroit, and whether he knew that at the time.
Well, I don't think he could have been certain of it, because it was a way off being signed, and I think they were very, very tense.
They were really hanging on by their fingernails.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, amazing time.
Yeah.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed reflecting on the split personality of the VK Commodore range. We hope you can join us next time for Shannons Club TV. Bye for now.